miserable. Now, having failed, they want to auction off our homes to yet another corporate slumlord. But Pinnacle tenants across the city refuse to accept this cycle of neglect. We banded together to demand safe, stable homes where we can live with dignity. I stand shoulder to shoulder with tenant associations recently formed across more than 50 buildings in Flatbush, Crown Heights, Park Slope, Harlem, Washington Heights, Inwood, Astoria, and Jackson Heights. In that fight, the Union of Pinnacle Tenants learned a thing or two about how to make a ruckus. Lessons passed down by the Crown Heights Tenants Union. The grassroots organizing CHTU began 13 years ago has grown into something far larger than anyone could have imagined. That swelling sound became a symphony, and from it emerged the Union of Pinnacle Tenants. And in this orchestra, I found my voice. And I have learned that when you make noise, or as the late, great civil rights activist John Lewis said, when you get in good trouble, some will dismiss it as just that, but others will lean in and listen. That is why the Union of Pinnacle Tenants is deeply honored that one of the very first acts Mayor Mamdani has taken is to visit a Pinnacle building, stand in solidarity with our fight, and announce the creation of the mayor's office to protect tenants. Mr. Mayor, thank you for listening. Today, we feel heard. And I'll now pass it back to Mayor Mamdani.
It's about an executive order that you also just announced. You're revoking all executive orders, I understand, that were issued after September 26th, 2024, which was the date of Eric Adams' indictment. I'm wondering, why was that date picked, and what orders in particular issued by Eric Adams after that were problematic to you?
We speak about this day as a new era. And in order for us to fulfill the hope that that language engenders, we have to reckon with why so many New Yorkers have turned away from politics over the last few months, the last few years, the last few decades. And that was a date that marked a moment when many New Yorkers decided that politics held nothing for them, but more of the same. And what we are showcasing here in this moment is not only how we will stand alongside the New Yorkers who have been left behind, but also the structures we will create such that New Yorkers in this room and outside of it can know the truth of that commitment. This is an office and an executive director that will be tasked with delivering for these tenants, that will be empowered to deliver for these tenants. And I stand also alongside a state assembly member who has ensured that this work, this struggle, this issue is one that is never lost in the headlines of this city.
What were some of the executive orders from Eric Adams issued after September 26th, though, that were especially problematic? One of them, for instance, created his Office of Anti-Semitism to combat anti-Semitism. Was that one you viewed as especially problematic that you wanted to get rid of?
In our second executive order, we write about the structure of city government, and that structure also includes the continued incorporation of the Office to Combat Anti-Semitism. That is an issue that we take very seriously, and is part of the commitment that we've made to Jewish New Yorkers to not only protect them, but to celebrate and cherish them. What I would say about the executive orders at large that were issued after that date is they are ones that time and time again come up against the interests of working class people and what they need from their mayor.
Two questions. First one.
Sorry they took you off the press list.
That's okay. Two questions. The first one, there was a pretty big tax the rich chant. I know a lot of your supporters like it. The governor doesn't love that phrase. Could you maybe speak to that divide and where that fits among your priorities going forward?
You know, I have said over the course of our campaign, and I will now say as the mayor of this city, that the two most straightforward ways to raise revenue, to not only take on the fiscal challenges that we are inheriting, but also to fulfill the affordability agenda that we have been running on, is by raising taxes on the 1% of New Yorkers who make $1 million a year, by an additional 2%, and by raising the state's top corporate tax rate to match that of New Jersey. And in this, we would raise $9 billion. And we put this forward because it is critical in a moment like this to not allow fiscal challenges to become an excuse for austerity, but instead to respond to them with the seriousness they deserve and the ambition that New Yorkers require, such that we not only protect what they have today, but ensure that they have more tomorrow.
My second question is Anthony Miranda going to remain sheriff of New York as your mayor?
We haven't made any additional personnel commitments, but as soon as we do, we will share them.
Yeah, hi. Two good things. One, the precedent-setting action that you're directing the Corp Council to take. Can you just elaborate on what specifically that is, what power the city might have here, and then also.
Let's do that one first,
Okay.
and I promise we'll get to this. And I'll just bring up my nominee for Corporations Council, Steve Banks.
Thank you. I remember the late 1980s and the early 1990s when hundreds of families living in two shelters were in buildings that were tied up in bankruptcy court. And I represented those tenants along with the city of New York, putting forward the city of New York's concerns in the bankruptcy court. And the end result in those two litigations was that those buildings became permanent, affordable, supportive housing. One of them is known as Geffner House on 42nd Street, and the other is the Times Square in Times Square. That kind of creativity resides within the law department, and we will be working with the law department lawyers to do what is in the best interest of New Yorkers in that bankruptcy case. The same as so many years ago, we came up with a pathway forward when people said it was not possible.
And then I know you've asked about this, but now that you're officially mayor, we did see Eric Adams take action seemingly to block your core promises of freezing the rent by adding new appointees to the rent guideline board. What is the plan there at this point? Are you concerned it's going to affect this core promise of yours in year one?
I continue to be confident that the Rent Guidelines Board will assess the landscape for tenants of rent-stabilized units across the city and find that they are in dire need of relief. What we have seen in the last year is that they found that while the profits of landlords of rent-stabilized units went up by 12%, the median household income for those same tenants was $60,000 a year. And what we are speaking about is a reflection of what we have already seen, and I continue to be confident in that board.
Go back to Mr. Banks. Could you say you're going to intervene in this bankruptcy? What are you going to specifically ask the court? What is the purpose of this intervention? Beyond, I know the goal is for the interest of the tenant. What specifically are you going to do in furtherance of that goal if you get to intervene?
First of all, the city of New York is already in the bankruptcy proceeding because the city of New York is a creditor. There's substantial fines and tax issues that are outstanding. And look, elections matter. And the position that the city has taken, the mayor has directed me to take another look at it. And I have confidence with the creative lawyers, as I said before, in the law department, that we'll come up with a way to not only address the financial needs of the city in terms of the collection of property taxes and the fines, but also so that the path forward with the tenants is one in which they can live in buildings that have appropriate conditions. We did it before, the City of New York, together with the Legal Aid Society in the late 1980s and the early 1990s. We're going to apply that same creativity in a proceeding in which the city is already part of the proceeding.
You're already in as creditor, so you're going to make sure the city gets paid. But again, I just didn't hear a specific thing of what you want to do for the tenants here. Are you going to keep them in the building if it gets bought? I mean, something concrete. What are you asking the court here?
Let me be clear. I have been a lawyer for 44 years, 45 years, I guess, at this point. I have always wanted to confer with my clients, the deputy mayor, the person who was just appointed as head of this terrific office. She's just been appointed a few minutes ago. I want to understand very clearly what they would like us to say in the court. And then as good lawyers, the law department will move forward with what they would like us to do. But I think it is a very important moment now, today, for the city of New York to say, we're going to be in that proceeding in a way in which the path forward is not simply trying to address the city's interests, but the city's interests are also bound up with the tenants' interests.
Just before you go, I'm just going to add one thing, which I think Steve alludes to, which is that the city of New York has not lacked for tools or tactics. The city of New York has lacked for intent. And that is what we are changing today.
Mr. Mayor, Anthony Carlo with WABC. Just want to ask you about the LIFT task force that you talked about, leveraging city-owned land for housing development. Can you just elaborate on how this is specifically different from some ambitious plans we've seen in previous administrations to build affordable housing?
So the last administration had a similar executive order that expired in December. So in this example, we're going to be looking, or with this task force, we're going to be taking an even deeper look, especially for sites that aren't clearly available for housing right now. So they may already may have other city facilities on them, other public facilities, or even private facilities that we're in contract for. So it's about trying to find new opportunities for housing, doing a deeper dive into the entire city's inventory, not just the inventory of the housing department or the Economic Development Corporation, the traditional agencies that produce housing. We're going to look at all city facilities and try to identify more sites that could be used for housing.
Examples of some certain facilities that you might convert into housing?
Well, where we did the announcement a couple weeks ago when I was appointed, that's the type of facility we might look for. That was a sanitation garage that we found a new site for. That's the type of example where instead of putting new capital dollars into fixing that sanitation garage, it was actually identified as an appropriate site for housing. So we put money into creating a new sanitation facility to clear the site in order for housing to be built. So that's the type of thing we'll be looking for.
Thank you. All right, now the mayor is going to sign our executive orders.
Sit down, please. Bring the phone down. Bring the phone down.